Awesome. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the version control with Git. Uh, version 106G Final 3. I don't know if that's part of the title, but I'm saying it anyways. I'm gonna do a quick introduction on our speaker here. So this is Chirag. He will be the workshop host for today. Very a little bit about himself is he is currently a software engineer at Snap Inc. So ask him about his experiences, ask him about his workshop. I think he'll be I don't know if I'm putting words in your mouth, but I think you'll love to talk about it. And another fun fact is that he is currently a 2 times Hack the Six organizer, so a fellow alumni, which we always love and appreciate. That said, I don't think this introduction did you any justice, so feel free to do a better one later. But the stage is yours.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thanks, Cindy. Gonna put my screen up there. All right, perfect. Let's get started. Good evening, everyone. It's bright and early, 10 p.m. Hopefully, the first 2 hours of hacking have been good. I don't think this is going to take the entire hour. Let's get started and work through it. And then at some point, if I'm done, we can do Q&A and just riff off. All right, as I was introduced, yeah, I'm Chirag. I'm here because I was asked to, and I like speaking about this particular topic. I've given a workshop on Git or just collaborative programming, good programming practices multiple times now. So this presentation's been kind of refined over time. You can find me on Twitter. I think it's pretty much the only social media platform that you can find me on, other than Snapchat. But don't add me on Snapchat. All right. I forgot to say this, but at any point in time, if you have questions, feel free to put it in the chat. I have chat up here. I have Discord up here as well. And the reason I'm looking up is because, yeah, the screen is here, but the camera is here. It's a little bit confusing, but that's fine. Yeah, feel free to ask any questions. Put it into the chat, and I'll be more than happy to get to it. I'm hoping this is going to be a workshop where y'all can follow along. So if you are following along and you're stuck or you need more time for any of the particular steps that we go through, please put something in the chat. I'll slow down, I'll stop, I'll repeat stuff. But the learning objectives, like the end goal of this time that we have together, is I want to introduce Git to you, why I think it's a good tool, and I want to just get some simple workflows through as well. So this is going to be, it's a good tool to learn. This is your first hackathon. If you've never worked on a team before, or if you've never written code where you have to share it with other people, I think it's a good tool that allows you to do this. And we're going to walk through Git and GitHub, which is a platform where you can store repositories. So yeah, the learning objectives are up there. I think collaborating is one of the big pieces that I want to cover, as well as how this can help you submit your project at the end. As you might have heard, Brian, at the opening ceremony, there's a hard deadline, and you need to submit code and a video. Well, you need to submit at least a video, but you could submit code as well. So I'll show you how that's going to be useful for you when you're submitting your project. All right, excuse the French, but yeah, what the hell is Git? You might have heard of it before or not. So Git is essentially a system that allows you to keep record of any changes to any files that you might have. If you're like most coders, most students even, you spend a fair amount of time trying to figure out and keep track of different files, different changes, different versions of those files. I don't know if you recognize the meme from the title of this workshop, but it's got to do with this comic, and I don't want people to have different versions of their code, of their files, where they make revisions and just rename the files. And this is like ever so common, especially if you're a student. I know I did this. My Google Drive is filled with different versions of the same file because you just like start renaming it and renaming it and renaming it. And this is one of the big reasons why Git is actually useful. So as I said, a system that keeps track of your changes. It allows you to share code with others, and it also allows you to know who made what changes to what files. So think of it as Google Drive. Well, you can think of Git as Microsoft Word, Google Drive as GitHub, so you can have the collaborative features. And then I don't know if you've seen Git, but in Google Drives, you can go back to a previous state in a file. So Git allows you to do this as well. Right. So Git in particular is like a version control tool. It's been around since 2005. It was written by this guy called Linus Torvalds, and he was the person who first made the Linux kernel, which is the operating system that the Mac operating system is based on. So if you're dialed in from a Mac or something like that, then you're probably using code that this dude wrote, as well as pretty much any other piece of code. If you use any website, pretty much every tool, every big product that's written out there uses Git in some way. So as I said, Git is a version control tool. It is built as a building block to accommodate VCS, which is version control service. And you don't need the internet, you don't need GitHub, you don't need to share code with anyone to reap the benefits of Git. It can live completely on your computer, and it keeps your code or your files or whatever you want to store in Git. And it is accessed either through the command line or the terminal or an app. A little bit of familiarity with Git, with the command line might be useful, but none of this stuff is going to be going into super depth. I'm going to show you the exact commands that I want you to run. So you should be fine. But there is also an app that you can download, like an app with a UI where you can look at what's happening instead of just using the command. All right, let's get started. If you are following along, now's a good time to open up a terminal. If you're on Mac, it's I think the tool is called just Terminal. Might be called iTerm if you have one of the newer computers. If you're on Windows, something similar should exist. Make sure to open up into WSL if you're on Windows, because that will have Git installed by default. So if you run Git -- version, you should see a version number, something 1 point something something. If you don't see something, if you say command not found, you need to go to that website. It's a pretty simple website. Here, let me drop a thing. You can go to the website. If you go there, it'll tell you exactly what you need to download for your platform. And I'm going to give a couple of minutes for you to open up your terminal. You don't need the latest version, not really. You can use there's been no huge changes in Git for a very long time. There's some user-friendly changes that happened in 2021, but you don't really need the latest version. Any Git. You can use the GUI version as well. That's completely fine. Oops, did it kick me out? It did. Sorry, I'll reshare my screen. But you don't need the GUI version, but if you have the GUI version, that's fine too. Sorry, what was I going to say? Yeah. So you should see a button if you go to get SCM. We do not support for this pre-release version. This installation homebrew won't work. The session is recorded is the first question. Second question is it won't let you download from Brew. I don't know what Mac OS 13 is, to be honest. Is that it's the one that came out a month ago or something like that, or 2 months ago or something like that, right? Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know if I can help you there. Session is recorded. That's right. All right. Any other questions? Is anyone stuck? Does anyone need more time? Does anyone need more help to download this? If you go to getscm.com, there should be a thing at the right that says download for Windows or download for Mac. Maybe if you're on Linux, download for Linux as well. But every Linux computer ships with it by default. So does a Mac. So you should be fine there. All right. Once you have installed it, I'm assuming everyone has a terminal window open. Um, there's some global settings that one usually sets when you use Git for the first time. You can set your name, so git config global dash dash global user name and then your name. Same thing with your email. Um, git config dash dash global user email. I like setting this particular setting, color.ui auto. It just shows when things get added or removed in a more vibrant way. So I like having this color mode. So additions are green, deletions are red. It's just a good thing to have. Um, now, why this is useful is every commit that you make, and I'll show you what a commit is in a bit, will get signed or will get identified using this information that you attach. So when you when you're working with other people, you want them to know, hey, I was the person that made this change. This is the information that allows Git to keep track of who made what changes. So just very simple commands: git config global user.name and user.email. You can use your own name, but it's roughly what it looks like. As always, feel free to jump in if you have questions. All right, so now you have Git and you have it configured. Let's do something with it. Again, if you're using the UI, this should be as simple as right-click, create new folder. If you're on the terminal, make dir is the command that you use to make a new folder. So go ahead and make a new folder and CD into it. CD just means go into a particular folder. So CD into it will take you into that folder that you just created. And the command to create a new repository is git init. Once you do that, you should see something called initialized empty. They're not necessary, Robert. You don't. It doesn't. It doesn't block you from doing your work. But when you do make a commit, it will tell you these commits. We don't know where these commits came from, or we don't know where these changes came from. No, you can use VS Code. So VS Code is Visual Studio Code, which has a plugin for Git. It's just another UI for the same concept. So the commands will be different. The words might sound similar. The staging, committing, pushing, the words might seem familiar, but the concepts are exactly the same. If you are more comfortable using VS Code, that's completely fine as well. All right, I'm assuming everyone's got something like this. When you run Git init, you should see something like initialized an empty Git repository. Now, this repository has nothing in it. There's no files. It's just on a brand new directory, a brand new folder that you just created. It's a misplaced slide. I'll get to that in a second. So a couple of commands that are going to be super useful, and you're going to remember to run them all the time. One of them is git status. Especially if you're not on a UI based tool, git status is going to be the bread and butter. You're going to learn to use them use it like it's the default thing that you run every time. So git status, whenever you run it, it gives you two crucial pieces of information. It tells you what branch you're on, and we'll get into more details on what branches actually mean. But it'll tell you what branch means, and it also tells you what changes you've made since the last time you made a commit. Git status is something that I run pretty much every 10th command that I run on my computer is probably git status. Now I've been hounding you about a commit. So what is a commit, and how does Git actually store state? How does it store how a file is actually represented? So you can think of it as a two-stage process. It's like a focusing and taking a camera, like taking a snapshot. So that there's two stages to checking in a particular file in Git. Say you have a file that's A, it's got a bunch of gibberish. Maybe you're just trying to smash your computer, or your cat walked over your computer, whatever. But you want to store that forever. You want to have a memory of your cat walking over your keyboard for the first time. So what you would do is do git add a. At that point, it's like focusing on a particular scene that you want to capture. So the first stage in every commit is staging. Once something is on the stage, and you can have multiple files, so you have file A, file B, file C, you can stage all of them uh, uh, independently or at the same time, and then you press commit. The commit takes whatever was in focus, whatever was on the stage, and stamps it as a commit, and it gives it a number or a hash, but think of it as a number or a unique identifier, and it says this is the state of file A that I have in my records. Then you can go and say, hey, cat, go walk over my keyboard again, and now you have a new version of file A. Which has some changes that weren't in the first commit that you did. You can again stage that file and do a commit. And now the Git repository has two versions of that same file, one from your first time and one from your second time. And you can easily switch between the two versions. But in a lot of ways, you can say git diff, so you can see what changed between the first and the second version. You can also revert back to the first version if you thought that was a better piece of code or piece of art or whatever. That's a good way of thinking about it. Like a good analogy of using Git is when you're taking a photo. Focus, shoot, stage, commit. Those are the two terms you're going to hear me use a lot during this presentation. So for any file, you stage it and then you commit it. All right, so let's make a commit. As I said, if you run git status right now, you will see there's nothing there. It's a brand new folder, brand new Git repository. So let's say we create a new file in a directory. You can name it whatever you want. You can make it however you want. Right-click new file. If you're on Windows, should do it. I think Mac works the same way as well. You can write anything in that file. You can save it anyhow you want as well. In this case, I made a file called hello and saved it. And now I saved it as hello.txt. And it pretty much has gibberish. It's got nothing in it. I don't have a cat, or else I would have asked the cat to walk on my keyboard. But I'm going to give some time for people to work through this and do this. So just create a new file. And then I'll work through adding and running git status again. But let me know once everyone's started and created a new file and are ready to carry on. I'll stop for questions if anyone has any at this point. I'll give a minute. I'll tell you in a second, Robert. Give me one sec. Anyone blocked? Anyone has any questions? Any questions other than what's restore? I'm waiting to answer that because it's going to be pivotal on the next piece that I'm going to explain. All right. So once you have created a new file, whatever you've named it, you can go ahead and run the command git add and then the name of that file. Say it was hello.txt, so you would run git add hello.txt. And then, as I said, if you run git status, you'll see something like this. It'll tell you what branch you're on. You're on the main branch. And then it'll change it, or if you have an older version of Git, it might say on branch master. The new default is main. It really depends on what version of Git you have. Then it'll show you changes to be committed and any new files or any changed files that you have under it. So you'll see that I just created a new file. It's called hello.txt, and it'll show up right there. And this is the snapshot version or the snapshot stage of a commit. So in this case, any new files, any changes that you've made haven't been committed yet. They've just been staged onto the stage. At this point, you can still go and make any changes to hello.txt. And if you do that, what's in the stage will not change. The stage still has the state of when you added it to the stage. So it's the focus doesn't change based on the thing that the content of the image that you're trying to do. So the focus remains the same. So if you make changes to hello.txt and want to go back to the version that you added to your stage, you would run that command. So usually Git is really good at telling you what command to run to do something. So if you want to unstage the changes, or if you want to go back to the version that's on your stage, you would run git restore -- staged with the name of the file. I hope that answers your question, Robert. But it's how do you? It's a way to take something off the stage. Say you don't want to commit it or something like that. It'll take it off the stage, and you can also restore it back to the version that was on the stage. Perfect. All right, let's go ahead and make a commit. So now you can you have something on the stage. It's a file called hello.txt. You can run this command git commit -m. -m is a flag that lets you attach a message to the commit. You don't. You can have a space there as well. I'm in a habit of not having a space between M and the message, but you can usually add anything and everything in the commit message. The general consensus is that your commit messages should be somewhat intuitive and explain what changes you're doing. So if I was a better programmer, my commit message here would read git commit -m add new hello.txt file. Once you do this, you should see something like what's below that message, and let me explain what each piece there means. Within the square bracket, you'll see main, which is the branch that you're on. Right now, you're only dealing with one branch, so you're always going to see that main or master there. You're going to see, yeah, exactly. Don't do some stuff was added or all my code for the whole weekend in one commit. Don't do that. So you'll see the name of the branch. You'll see a hash. It's essentially a number that uniquely identifies this commit. And then after the square bracket, you're going to see the commit message that you added. The line below that, you will see anything that you've added. So in this case, I just had an empty file. It says one file changed, 0 insertions, 0 deletions. So if I had any content in the hello.txt file, it would have shown 5 lines added, 12 lines removed, or something like that. In this case, new file that was created, empty file. So it just says one file changed, 0 insertions, 0 deletions, and that's it. And you can get back to this even down the line. So if you want to say, hey, I committed something yesterday, I don't remember what it was, your favorite command there is going to be git log. Git log will show you a list of all commits that you've ever made in this particular repository. So if I ran git log right after I did that commit, you would see something like this. You will see the commit hash. You will see what branch the commit is off of. You'll see who made it, as long as you made the you set your global variables and all that stuff, and you'll see when it was made along with the commit message. You can see more details of the commit by doing git show and then providing the commit hash. So you can take the first 6 characters from here, so 5C35F8. So you can do git show with that, and it'll show you exactly what changed in that particular commit. So git status and git log are my best friends when I'm doing any sort of coding. And it's probably going to be something that you're going to get used to a lot as you write more code and share more code. So at this point, you have a commit. You've made a commit. Good job. But no one else can access it. It's on your computer. You're the sole owner of this code, and no one else can look at it. That's where GitHub comes in. But before I go into GitHub, I want to give some time and ensure I answer any questions around Git. So we've learned so far git status, Q, sorry, I should have explained that. Q to get out of that screen. Hopefully that worked, Kevin. Let me know if it didn't. Q for quit, yeah. Okay, perfect. So far we've learned git status, we've learned git add, how to add files to your stage. We've learned the difference between a staged file and a committed file. We've done git log, and we've done a git commit. So we've actually made a commit called whatever. Any questions? Any other questions? Any other thoughts? All right, I'm gonna jump into GitHub. So what is GitHub? I have a slide on this. All right, so GitHub is a hosting site. It's not the only hosting site, but it is one of the largest hosting sites for Git repositories. Other common options include GitLab and Bitbucket, I think is what it's called. But GitHub is like universally known as probably the place where people host code. They're also, I believe, partners with MLH, so you can get like a bunch of free stuff from GitHub as well. There's if you're a student in particular, you can get a bunch of free stuff from GitHub. If you don't already have an account, now is a good time to let's go to github.com. That's the domain, and go set up an account. So we're going to go do that, and then we're going to connect the local repo that you made, local repository that you made, to a GitHub repo, and we're going to see the UI in GitHub and what it does. And as I said, the Git repo exists on your computer. GitHub adds a layer on top of it, which allows you to share that code with other people. So let's go. Let's go to github.com. Create an account. Try to use a professional username. Don't do mech poopy pants or something like that. Use first name dot last name if that's not available. First name or F, first initial last name, first name last initial, something like that. Odds are something related to your name will be available. If not, try adding an underscore after it, like I did for my Twitter handle. I mean, yeah, you can use mech poopy pants, but it's probably taken. I think my handle on GitHub is Cgata. If I haven't used it in a bit, I think that's what it is. Yeah, it is. Oh my God, you can see my mug if you look for it, but don't look for it. All right, I'm gonna give people some time to create a GitHub account. The parking the name is just not using it. It sucks. All right, go create a GitHub account. It should be fairly quick and painless. I think you need to confirm your email, so make sure you have access to the email that you actually enter to make your GitHub account, and choose a good professional-ish username, obviously. Once you are in, you will see a landing page with a bunch of stuff. It's going to show you a column on the left that says new repository or something like that. And I'll show you a thing that says explore GitHub, but don't worry about that for now. I'm going to give another minute and we can continue at 10:33. Check your spam if you haven't gotten your email confirmation stuff, but hopefully that comes in soon. And yeah, jump in, ask any questions at any time as well, obviously. All right, 10:33. All right, let's move on. All right, so when you create a new account, I think this is a change, but you can create unlimited public or private repositories as long as they're for private use. So if you want to share your private repositories with others, I think you can have a max of 3 or 4 or something, unless something's changed recently. But as long as you have a public repository, anyone can clone it. So if you go to my GitHub account, which I've linked in there, you'll see that I have a few repositories like Chirag's first project or random stuff that I've built. And these are like public repositories. I also have some private repositories that have code that I don't really want anyone to look at. All right. So let's go create a new repository. If you go to the top left, there should be a new button on GitHub. And if you click it, it should bring you to a page something like this. You'll be able to have a drop down that says owner, where you can select yourself. This is a screenshot from the github.com tutorial. So it says past after someone, I guess. Name your repository anything. Good rule of thumb is have a good descriptive name. Maybe the same name as the folder that you created for now is also fine. Something like my first project. You can add a description, although it's optional. You can have a public or a private repository. That's fine as well. Choose not to add a README. Just keep your repository empty. And then once you put in a name, pretty much the button at the bottom that says Create Repository should go green. And if you click it, you will be brought to something like this. Nope. I lost the slide. Give me 1 sec. I thought I had the slide. Sorry. Oh, I just hit it. That's fun. Start a slideshow here, presenter view. All right, I'm back. Perfect. All right. So once you create a repository, click that green button at the bottom, and you'll see something like this. And GitHub is really good at telling you what to do with this repository that you created, this empty repository that you created. The steps that you see on top there are pretty much exactly the steps that we're going to do to connect this repository. But I'm going to run through them slowly, so you don't need to rush through them. Now's a good time to copy the URL up top. So where it says git@github.com, I would switch it over to HTTPS because it's just going to be easier rather than setting up SSH keys. So you'll see a button that says SSH, another one that says HTTPS. So I would click HTTPS, and it'll give you a URL, something like HTTPS github.com/ your username / your repository name. So you can copy that, or you can click the button on the far right, and it will copy that URL for you as well. So at this point, you should have a repository created, and you should have an HTTPS link to that points to that repository, essentially. Now what we're going to do is we're going to come into your terminal again and run this particular command, git remote add origin. So what this does is, and the URL that you just copied from GitHub, What this does is it connects the wire. It tells your local repository that you want to connect it with this remote repository, remote repo that you've created in GitHub. So it allows you to connect any local changes and check them in to GitHub so that other people can also see it, because not everyone can see it. It's on your computer. So once you do git remote add origin and then paste in the URL from GitHub, if you type git remote -v, it'll show you pretty much that. It'll show you the URLs that you just entered, along with it'll probably have two entries, one for fetch and one for push. Don't worry about them. Uh, just assume you have. If you see something when you're on git remote -v that has your URL, just assume that everything's worked fine. The next command you're going to run is git push -u origin main. Now what this command is doing is it's saying push the changes that I have on this branch called main to the origin remote that I've just added. And the -u says create this branch if it doesn't exist on remote. And it's just something I tend to do regardless. Anytime I make any changes and I want to push them, this is the default command I run, git push -u origin, and then the name of the branch. In this case, it might be master or main based on what version of Git you have. So once you run this, I would go back to GitHub, to the repository that you just created, and go look at it. I'm going to give everyone a second to follow along here. All right, before I get to branching, what do you see on GitHub in your repo? You should see the file that you had locally and you committed in GitHub now. And as long as you've made a public repo, you can share that link with your friends, your other people that you're writing code with this weekend, or with anyone else you want to share your cat's artwork with. Essentially, a way to push files into onto a website and share the link to those files with other people. So now you know how to make local changes. You know how to commit them. You know how to push them up to GitHub so that other people can look at them. So what's next? The thing that I've been hammering about all for the last 40 minutes is GitHub and Git is great for collaboration. If you have multiple people working on the same project at the same time, how do you do this? You do this using branches. Now, branches are pretty much, think of it as branches off of a tree. So you have code in a central branch called main or master, and that is your known truth code that is good code, and it's deployed or used, or it's the one that you're going to use to demo or whatever. It's the thing that people see by default when they go to your repository on GitHub. Let's say you're making a different change, a different feature, a different edition. Say you're working on the back end, or you're working on the front end on a piece of your project which other people aren't working on. What you would do is you would create your own branch off of main. So say to create a new branch, the command you run is git branch -b for new branch, and then name it. Again, the naming for branches should be somewhat intuitive. Don't say adding X or blah, blah, blah. Don't call it feature X unless there's a big secret on what you're making. So you do adding front end or adding a button to this front end would be a better option. So create a new branch for this new feature you're trying to work on. Excuse me, new feature you're trying to work on. And now any commit you make after this is going to be, after you create the branch, you need to change to that branch. So you do that using git checkout name of the branch. That's a command that I forgot to put on the slide. But after you create a branch using -b, you need to change to that branch. So you do that using git checkout. And it just means check out this branch that I just created. After that, any commits that you make will be on this branch. They won't be on main. So if you run git status, you'll see on branch feature X or on branch adding button to front end instead of seeing on branch main. This means that multiple people can work off of the same repository and make their changes in parallel. And once you make these changes, you can do the same thing and git push origin with the name of the branch, and the branch will end up in GitHub. Now, what do you do with a branch that ends up on GitHub? You will do something called a pull request or a pull chain or a merge request. I've seen change request. There's multiple names for this. But in the GitHub UI, you call this a pull request. And this UI can be a little confusing if you don't know what's happening. But put very simply, left to right, it says what's the base branch. So what branch are you trying to push these changes into or merge your changes into? Um, say you're going to your default branch, which is the main branch, and you've made a bunch of changes to your feature branch, or you've added a button now, you would say, put into the main branch my branch that I just created, in this case, feature X or whatever. And if you scroll down, it'll show you all the things that have changed in your branch that aren't in the main branch. Very easy way to see the diff is what we call it between what you've been working on and what's currently deployed. So what you would do is put in a nice, oh, I missed the slide again. Put in a nice description, say, hey, I've added this new branch. Can you please take a look? And your other teammates are going to be like, yeah, this looks good. Let's, and they would like click a button and approve it. Once something is approved, you can do a merge. When you do a squash or a merge commit or a rebate, well, forget about like the complexities. In most cases, you're going to use something called a squash and merge. What that means is all the commits on your branch are going to get collapsed into one commit, and they will make their way to main. And what this looks like on main is, say, X or whatever your username is, Chirag, merged this PR with the name of, sorry, with the number of the PR, and it'll show up as a single commit with all the changes that you had on that branch. So the good part about using pull requests and GitHub is you can have multiple people. Say you're at a hackathon and you have 4 people on your team, and they can work on independently on their own pieces and make their own changes on their own branches. And once you're done, you would put up a change or pull request and have the other people review it and check it in, and then you can squash and merge it in. What this allows you to do is parallelize, so you're not all sharing files with one another. You can also checkpoint in at certain intervals, so you don't say, I had something working 6 hours ago, but I forgot what state it was in. If you get to a point where you have something working, a good thing to do is make a commit. That way you can go back and look at what you had previously. You can go back and reset to what you had previously as well. So just doing incremental commits at regular intervals is just simply a good practice to do. And then finally, when you're submitting your hack in DevPost, there's a field in DevPost for your GitHub link. Now, one of the requirements for this hackathon is you can't be doing work outside of like you can only start hacking at 8 p.m. and you can't have done any work before this. A good way where organizers check if this is true is by looking at your GitHub repo. And if you have your GitHub repo and you've linked it to your DevPost submission, you can be like, see, none of my commits were from before 8 p.m. I started at 8 p.m. My first commit came in at 10, and then I was consistently working after that. It also shows the judges that you've had who's worked on what. So that as long as different people are working on different parts of the app, it'll show that there's an equal effort, and that shows that you all work well together. It also, as I said, you're allowed to submit multiple times. So you can just change, you can submit the GitHub repo link and then make changes as long as it's before 10 p.m. on Sunday, 10 a.m. on Sunday, excuse me. And you don't need to change anything with your submission as long as the code that you're changing is always up to date in your repository. the general recommendation is to have a video because that's what the judges are going to be looking at. But having a GitHub link on your dev post goes a long way in helping the organizers and helping the judges ensure that your work was done methodically. It was done over the period of the whole weekend, and there was no work done before that. That is all I have to talk about today. I know I put my URL email there. I don't know why I didn't update it, but you can reach me at that email as well, by the way. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me on GitHub. You can find me everywhere, pretty much using Cigata. Don't add me on Snapchat. I'm here if you, yes, it will. I'm here if you have any questions, obviously. I'll stick around for the next 10 minutes. I'll be online periodically over the weekend as well. If you're coming to Simple tomorrow morning, feel free to find me and ask questions there as well because I'll be there for a bit. Yeah, thank you so much. Hope everyone enjoys Hack the Six 2022.
Oh my gosh, I did not join fast enough. But thank you, Chirag, for that wonderful workshop. It was definitely, every time you have this workshop, I just feel like I can start doing code again and collaborating with other people. But I need some motivation, and maybe this will finally be it. So thank you for this. But yeah, no, if any of you have any questions for Chirag, he will be here for the next little bit. So feel free to ask it away and he'll answer. Otherwise, we will be sharing a recording and the slide deck when available. Ooh,